The following is a paid program by Zola Levitt Ministries. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. Zola Levitt presents.
Shalom and welcome to Zola Levitt Presents. I'm Miles Weiss.
And I'm Catherine Weiss, and we want to welcome you to our show today. Miles, I'm excited. We're going to be showing David Rubin,
Yes.
a friend of ours,
Yes.
in the heartland of Israel.
That's right.
And did you know that Israel is the size of New Jersey? It's one of the smallest places on the earth, but
Yep.
it's so disputed because it's God's promised land.
Right, listen to the promise. This is Genesis 17, verse 8. God speaks to Abraham and says, "This is my covenant that I will give to you, to your seed after you, the land where you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession." Well, we're seeing that right now, according to the prophets. Amos 9:15 says, "I will plant you in the land, never to be uprooted again."
It's
David
the
lives there.
restoration of Israel, of the
Yes.
people, of the land,
Yes.
and of God's covenant plan for Israel. I mean, that the West Bank is what we're going to have defined in this show. And people often ask me, what is the West Bank?
Right.
Well, it's not a bank. It's actually the heart of Israel. And
it is.
David's going to be very clear.
It is. We've been meeting with David Rubin for years, taking groups up to Shiloh to meet with him. He's a victim of terror. His son was as well.
Right.
And they're doing a wonderful work up there with a therapy center for children victims of terror. And so we met with David and we asked him, please, David, define the West Bank for us.
The term West Bank is actually very similar to the term Palestine, because Palestine is a fictional term that was created by the Roman conquerors a little bit under 2,000 years ago. They had conquered the land of Israel, driven most of the Jews from the land of Israel, and as part of that whole process of erasing the presence of Israel from its land, they wiped off the names Israel and Judea from the map. They renamed the land of Israel Palestina. That's the Romans. They renamed the land of Israel Palestina, taking that word, giving a Roman derivative of the word Philistines, who were, of course, the arch enemies of Israel. So the name Palestina evolved over the hundreds of years to follow, over the centuries that followed, evolved into Palestine. And people called it Palestine. The Jews around the world still prayed to the land of Israel. They still prayed facing the land of Israel for 2,000 years. 3 times a day or more, we would pray to the land of Israel. But in common speech, it was known as Palestine. And there was no indigenous Palestinian people. In fact, my father-in-law, who grew up was born in the land of Israel and lived his early childhood there, he was referred to as a Palestinian. He says he and his family were Palestinians. If you spoke of a Palestinian, you were speaking about a Jew. And it's only after the State of Israel established 1948, 1967, we had the miraculous Six-Day War. In the Six-Day War, in 6 days, and on the 7th day we rested because the 7th day was a Jewish Sabbath. And what happened in those 6 days? We recaptured the biblical heartland of Israel, recaptured Judea, we recaptured Samaria, recaptured Old Jerusalem, we recaptured the Golan Heights, the Sinai Desert, Gaza. And all of this happened in 6 days, and on the 7th day we rested. Now, what does that mean in terms of the West Bank? That area that we recaptured, Judea and Samaria, has come to be known as the West Bank. Why did they give it the name the West Bank? The same reason the Romans gave the land of Israel the name Palestine, to wipe off the presence of the people of Israel from its land. But if you look in your Bible, If you look in your history book, you will not see the term West Bank. There is no such place. I live in Samaria. South of Samaria is Jerusalem and Judea. That is the biblical heartland of Israel.
David Rubin is such a great spokesman for the so-called West Bank because he really can understand it, because he lives there, and interpret for us biblically what it really means. Another great spokesman is David HaIvri. We met with him up on the Mount of Olives, where he spoke to us about the same issues from his point of view. One of the great things that he brings to us is an understanding that the Christians are coming to support the Jewish people in rebuilding and planting the vineyards on the mountains of Israel. Amos 9:15 tells us that we would plant vineyards again. In fact, Christians are coming and helping David HaIvri and his people build the vineyards on the mountains of Israel. So let's go to my interview with David HaIvri. David, we're standing here where thousands of years of history have taken place for the Jewish people. What does it mean for us to be here right on the way of the patriarchs?
Miles, this is a very inspirational. I don't know if there's any place in the world that's more inspirational than the place that we're standing right now. Here with the Temple Mount behind us, the city of David just below us. This is the center of Israel, and it's the center of the world. According to our belief, Jerusalem is the center of the world, the capital of Israel, the capital of the Jewish people.
And it doesn't stop here. If we keep going from this area, we come to your home, don't we?
The road of our fathers, road number 60, which takes us from Shechem in the north, all the way down to Beersheba in the south, passing by all of the locations that are mentioned in the Bible. All of the stories of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all occurred along this road. Joseph, the son of Jacob. Jacob sends Joseph out to seek out his brothers who are minding the flocks. And he goes to the valley of Dothan. That's where he was abducted by his brothers.
Yes.
And there are so many stories in the Bible that we read about our fathers revolving around these areas. And it is a great inspiration living here, living on these mountains, on the mountains of Israel.
I noticed the prophet said that we would be planted back here, never to be uprooted again, and yet there are many threats against you living in the community that you're in right now.
That is the truth. I represent the Shomron Liaison Office, the Jewish communities of the Samaria, and it is ironic that all of the arrows faced against Israel in the world, all of the propaganda, all of the hate focused on Israel in university campuses, all talk about Israel's control of this area, the area that they call the West Bank.
Yes.
Is Judea and Samaria, is the heartland of Israel,
Yes.
is the core. This area, it's so ironic that this area that's the main claim of the Jewish people to the land of Israel, that is the same place that the nations of the world are trying to pressure Israel to remove Jewish people from and to give over to another people.
I read your article recently, What West Bank? Explain how that term came into being.
Well, the term the West Bank, and it is important to point that out because the term is used so widely. You know, it's amazing. If you ask somebody what their opinion is about Portugal or what their opinion is of Kazakhstan, people will say, where is that? But if you ask somebody what's their opinion about Israel, you'll find that so many people in the world have an opinion about Israel and have an opinion about the West Bank.
Yes.
What is the West Bank? Where did that term come about? It's used so often, you hear about it so often that people might think that the West Bank has some kind of historical importance. But the fact is that the West Bank only came about in 1948 in Israel's War of Independence when Israel's neighbors all invaded the newly founded state of Israel and tried pushing the Jews into the sea.
Yes.
Jordan, the army of Jordan crossed over Jordan's border, the Jordan River. The country of Jordan is named for the river, which is its western border.
Right.
Their army crossed over that river, occupied an area west of the river, the West Bank, and that's when the term came about. The term the West Bank is only as old as the state of Israel.
So when our audience, if they're Bible readers, and they see or hear on the radio or television West Bank, they should immediately think Judea and Samaria, the place of the Bible, the heartland, as you say.
That is the truth. The West Bank is a political term for the geographical area that's always been called Judea and Samaria. Before it was called the West Bank, all of those old maps, you'll see the markings on the map. You have Galil, you have Negev, and you have Judea and Samaria.
And what's the current political climate and threat to the communities? I love that I say that ironically, I love that they use the term settlements. I've seen these communities. They're gorgeous communities of people living in a thriving, wonderful way, and they're called settlements. Tell me about that. What's the current threat?
Today, 10% of Israel's Jewish population live in Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank. The Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria are called by the international community settlements.
Yes.
So in Israel, in the areas that are outside of the West Bank, the areas that Israel was established in before the Six-Day War in 1967, communities are called towns, villages, moshav, kibbutz.
Yes.
But the same type of communities, if they're over the green line, if they're in Judea and Samaria, they're called settlements.
Yes.
10% of Israel's population live in those communities. I live in a community like that. I've lived there with my wife, Mali, and our 8 children for the past 20 years.
Yes.
And we have a home, along with 200 other families who live there in Kfar Tapuach. And that's the average type of community. Tapuach, Shiloh, or Shiloh, Elon Moreh, communities with 150, 200, 300 families. Those are the average type of settlements of Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria.
Right.
And they're just communities like communities anywhere else.
It's really a misnomer. Just like the West Bank is a misnomer, settlements is a misnomer.
What people need to do is they need to come and see for themselves.
Amen.
People care about Israel. People wish to pray for Israel and to protect Israel. Recently, we had a visit of American congressmen, Christian believers who came to visit and to show their support. People like Louis Gomart from Dallas, who visited us, and I took him out to Har Bracha. Har Bracha is on Mount Gerizim, the Mount of Blessing of the Bible.
Yes.
And we stood in the vineyards of Har Bracha, which is an amazing phenomenon in itself. If we have time, we should talk about that. We stood in the vineyards of Mount Bracha, and which is 850 meters above sea level. We looked to the west, and we could see the Mediterranean Sea. We could see the city of Tel Aviv. We turned around and looked to the east, and we could see the mountains of Moab, of Jordan. We're standing at one place, and we're looking at 2 borders of the state of Israel.
Wow.
I don't know how many people realize how narrow Israel is. There's only 70 kilometers from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. 70 kilometers, that's less than 50 miles. That's all. And the West Bank, the Samaria, is 55 kilometers of those 70.
We want our viewers to stand with Israel, to support the Jewish people. What I'd like you to do is look directly into the camera and say anything you want to our viewers so that they will know from your heart how they can stand with Israel at this time.
This is an amazing phenomenon. The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel is something that we have prayed for 2,000 years, since we were forced off of this land. Jewish people in every country around the world faced Jerusalem, faced this holy mountain that's behind us, and prayed to return and rebuild Jerusalem and to rebuild the Jewish country. You need to stand with Israel, you need to pray for Israel, you need to stand up when people say terms like West Bank and settlements. You need to correct them, and you need to say, no, that is Judea and Samaria, that's the heartland of Israel, that's where the Jewish people belong. And we are glad, I am glad that I have the opportunity to live in this generation, to be here, to live here with my wife, with my children, to raise my children in this land, and to reconnect to our heritage, to our land, and to God through being here.
The Bible lands. You've read about them. Now encounter them for yourself. Walk in the footsteps of Jesus at the Jordan, Galilee, Jerusalem. Journey in the shadow of Paul to Athens, Corinth, Ephesus. Join Miles and Catherine Weiss on a tour of the Bible lands and witness the Word come to life as never before. Call 1-800-WONDERS.
I love Israel, and I know you do too. We'd love you to come with us on a tour and see the beautiful sights that really the scripture comes alive there, and the Lord walk there. It's a trip of a lifetime. You can call 1-800-WONDERS and talk to Tracy, our tour manager, and you can even, go online and look at it there.
Yeah, I love what we've been able to do recently on the tours is bring social media into the tours.
It's been really fun.
Yeah, we've been in touch with you while we're on the sites and in the land. We had some great moments of uploading pictures and sites on Facebook and following us on Twitter. You can really see what we're doing on the tours, but you really want to come with us. There's nothing quite like that.
Yeah.
One of the great ways to know what we're doing here at Zola Ministries is to receive our free newsletter, the Levitt Letter. It's full of up-to-the-minute news from the Middle East, news about Israel, the real stories that are going on behind the scenes, things that you will not hear on the mainstream media. And our offer this week is The Age of Terror. This is a teaching that Zola did before he graduated to heaven, and it really does explain the forces that are vying for power over Israel and in the West, and really how God's going to bring a solution, which of course is himself, as he prepares his return.
I love how our offers, honey, help us continue airing this message and continue to give us the message that's coming from the heart of Israel.
It's true. The newsletter is free to you, but it costs us money to publish it and to create it and to get the writers gathered, etc. So any way that you can help support us is greatly appreciated, because we really want to keep going, especially as we see the day approaching. Now, one of the things we were able to do on this last trip to Israel was go to Hebron, the most disputed city in Israel, because it is where the patriarchs are buried.
That's right.
So, of course, the historical revisionists are trying to say the Jews were never there. Well, we were able to catch up with and speak with the spokesman for the Jewish community in Hebron. So let's go to that interview right now. David, you are a spokesman for Hebron. You told me that you also love to bring groups here. Tell me why.
This is the main attraction, and if you don't come here, where do you go? We had last year almost 700,000 people that came to visit here on this side with us. This is the second holiest site to the Jewish people in all of Israel. And for 700 years it was off limits to anybody that wasn't Muslim. And today we're here to ensure that anybody and everybody from any religion, from any country in the world that wants to visit here should have access to this holy site. And it's a privilege and an honor to be here. And I feel like it's an obligation to bring people here. People that have never seen it, they stand here and they look at it and they say, wow.
So finally, the world is making the connection between the book that they read, if they're Christians and Jews, and the reality of a Jewish presence here in this land.
Well, are people making the connection? Look, the word Hebron means connection. It means lechaber, to join together, connect. So people that come here and see and partake, they become pieces of this, the links in this chain that's 4,000 years old. Are people around the world making the connection? We're trying to help them make that connection.
I appreciate that. We're trying to do the same thing in America. David, you have an opportunity to speak to all of America. If there's a communication you'd like to give, what do you feel America needs to hear at this time?
Well, first of all, I invite anybody who's in Israel to come visit us here, first and foremost, because there's so much propaganda that runs around and so many lies that you see in the press and that you read on the internet. Until you see it, it's very difficult to believe it. So first, come and visit. In terms of Israel today, know that our goal, my goal here as a Jew in Hebron and living in Israel, and I think the goal of most Israelis, is to live in peace. We really do want peace, but we want a peace that will allow us to continue to exist in our land, to be able to live here freely and to be able to live here safely as people live all over the world. That's our only goal. Today there are still people that want to erase us. They want to blacken the word Israel on the map, push the delete button and have us disappear. And we have to ensure today that that never happens. We have to ensure that for ourselves, but we also have to ensure it for you, because Israel is the beginning, it's the tip of the iceberg, okay? If terrorism is allowed to use its aggression to be victorious here, then it's just going to run rampant all over the world. And it's not just going to affect us, it's going to affect you in the United States, it's going to affect the Europeans. It will make 9/11 look like a child's game. The difficulties that we're having today with Ahmadinejad in Iran is just the beginning. Because as far as he's concerned, we're all the same. It makes no difference to him if I'm a Jew in Hebron or if it's a Christian or anybody else living in New York or Washington or Los Angeles. And if he has the weapons to destroy us, he's going to develop weapons to destroy you too. If we stop him now, then he'll never reach you. We all have to work together. We have to work together for one goal, to be able to live freely and with real truth and real freedom and real justice for all people all over the world.
That was actual footage from Hebron, and our interview there. It was so thrilling for me to be there, Miles,
Right.
because that's where the tomb of the patriarchs are.
Yeah, we've been to Hebron. We've been to Israel so many times,
Right.
but that was our first time in Hebron. It was really amazing. Well, another view of the Middle East conflict comes from Rachel Lipkin. Avi and Rachel are great spokesmen and teachers about the conflict in the Middle East. Rachel Lipkin is an Egyptian-born Jew who interprets the Arab media for the Israeli government. She's got a very hard job. She really needs our prayers. And Catherine was able to interview her about the current events in the Middle East. So let's go to Catherine's interview with Rachel Lipkin.
Rachel, we hear in America that Arab Spring is wonderful, that it's bringing democracy to Egypt and democracy wherever it goes. But you have your pulse on the real facts behind what's happening. Can you tell us a little bit about that? In
Yeah.
Syria, for instance?
Exactly. Democracy will never be in the Arab country with the Muslim religion. And they said it. And they said it like this: democracy on our dead body. Now, for getting to the democracy and the Middle East, Mubarak was the middle, is between democracy and not democracy. And after him, Egypt and the Arab world would be falling apart because the Muslim doesn't know how to rule, how to make a connection with the West. And this is the end of it.
Because
This
democracy is built on Judeo-Christian values.
Exactly. And they don't believe in that. And that's why the whole Middle East will be destroyed unless Turkey, who is now the leader in the Middle East, because no leader, Arab leader who is strong now those days, and with the help of the White House, Erdogan, the Turkey Prime Minister, Turkey will be the first country who is going to take care of Syria and Lebanon in the same time, being against the Shias. And that's why the Turk also start sitting with the Iranian, talk about the nuclear weapons. And the White House is helping this Turk to speak to the Iranian that this is the last
Empire or...
No, this is the last time that they will talk about that the Iranians stop with their nuclear weapon. If not, Turkey is going to be against Iran and against the Shias in Lebanon and also in Syria. It's a matter of time. And Assad, the Syrian president, are making, he laugh. He's sitting with Kofi Annan, and you see, he's continue doing whatever he wants. Then the Arab League are met those days, and they don't have any clue how to deal with Syria. Because now Syria think that if they attack Syria, the whole Middle East will be in fire. And I say, this is only a matter of fear. Iran is not going to do anything if Syria will be falling apart. And I think that the Turkish country will be really taking over the Middle East very slowly, but it will happen because there is no leader in the Arab country anymore.
Okay. So the Christians were expelled from Lebanon.
They will be expelled because they know exactly that the Sunnis, they don't want the Christian, and they don't want even the Druze. And they will be going all over, especially to Israel. And the Syrian also, if Bashar Assad will fall down, all the Christian will flee because the Christian was with Bashar al-Assad all the time. But if he fall down, I don't see that the Christian will be anywhere in the Middle East.
It was a privilege for me to interview Rachel. You know, she has such a challenging job to decipher the news.
Right.
The language barrier was a little difficult,
Right.
and she meant to say the Christians weren't going to flee, they're going to flee to Israel.
Exactly.
And she did say that after our interview ended.
That's really true because Christians and Israeli Arabs have more rights in Israel than anywhere in the Middle East.
Yeah. It's a democracy. It's
it is.
the only democracy in the Middle East, and
Exactly
that needs to
right.
be shouted about.
Yes, it does. And it's so amazing that it's so ironic that Israel gets the bad press,
It is.
and yet that is the safest haven for whoever.
For Arabs, Jews,
Yep.
and Christians.
Yep, everyone. So that's we're really living in the day that the prophet spoke of. Jeremiah 16 speaks of God defining himself no longer as the God who brought us up out of Egypt, but as the God who brought us from the north, the south, the east, and the west. We've seen that with the Russian Aliyah, and now we're going to see an incredible Aliyah from the west, the Sephardim. More and more we're going to see Jewish people
Right.
returning to our homeland because God is preparing us to say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
Day is soon approaching.
Right, our redemption draws nigh. So, as we see the day approaching, we want to remind you to please, Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Our offer on this program, 2 DVDs containing the 8 programs in our televised series, Age of Terror. Shot on location in Israel, Zola takes you from the terrors of the ancient past to present-day conflicts and the battles yet to come. In the second half of each program, Waleed Shubat, an ex-Muslim terrorist who was born in Bethlehem, joins Zola in the studio, sharing his insights into the world of terrorism. Also, please call toll-free or write to receive our monthly newsletter, The Levitt Letter. It's absolutely free and contains insightful article and news commentary with a refreshing perspective you won't get from the mainstream media. The Levitt Letter is also available at levitt.com, along with current and archive TV programs, our national airing schedule, and much more. Please remember, Zola Levitt Ministries depends on tax-deductible donations from viewers like you. This has been a paid program brought to you by Zola Levitt Ministries.